Imagine standing in front of a closed door that holds everything you've ever dreamed of. A successful career, deep relationships, sound health, a legacy that inspires generations. But there is a problem. This door is blocked by an invisible enemy who whispers to you that this is not the time, that you need more preparations, that tomorrow will be better. According to Napoleon Hill, this enemy is procrastination, the silent thief that steals your time, confidence, and opportunities. Hill, who has devoted his life to studying success giants, such as Andrew Carnegie and Thomas Edison, concluded that procrastination is not just a bad habit, but a mental prison that keeps you anchored in mediocrity. But I have good news. Napoleon Hill not only diagnosed the problem, but created a map to escape from prison and take control of your destiny. On this journey, we will discover the principles of transformation that will enable you to act with urgency, overcome fear, and become a person who not only dreams, but also realizes your visions. Think for a moment. How many times have you put off something important, knowing deep down that you were betraying your own desires? Perhaps it was a project that could have changed your career, a healthy habit you gave up, or a conversation you avoided out of fear. Napoleon Hill teaches us that every time you indulge in procrastination, you are training your mind to accept stagnation, but you are not condemned to such a life. Hill discovered that great, successful people are not born different. They simply master their mind to act despite doubts. Today we will discuss their strategies so that you too can break this cycle and start living with purpose. Are you ready to stop procrastinating and take charge of your future? Before we delve into the teachings of Napoleon Hill, I want to invite you to demonstrate that you are a true follower of his wisdom. If you are interested in destroying procrastination and living a life full of action, click the subscribe button. Let's build a community that lives by the Hill principles. How many of us will join this mission? Let us return to the essence of Napoleon Hill's philosophy. In his masterpiece, Think and Grow Rich, Hill explains that procrastination is the result of a mind that doubts, a mind that clings to the safety of its comfort zone. But the leaders they studied, from industrialists to inventors, had one thing in common. They acted with immediate decisiveness. Hill noted that indecision is the seed of procrastination. Every time you hesitate, you give power to that whisper that says, "You're not ready, wait a little longer." But wait a minute. What if instead of waiting for perfect brightness, you decided to act now? Hill teaches us that action does not require absolute certainty. It takes courage. For example, when Henry Ford decided to produce the Model T, many told him it was crazy. However, he made a quick decision and carried it out, modifying course along the way. Here's Hill's first rule for overcoming procrastination. Decide quickly and act. Think about it. What decision have you been putting off? Maybe it's about starting a business, signing up for a course, or just tidying up your desk. Hill would say that perfection is an illusion that paralyzes you. You don't have to know all the answers. You just need to take the first step. Try this. Today, pick a task you've been avoiding and commit to doing something, even a small one, in the next 10 minutes. For example, if you want to write a book, write a sentence. If you want to improve your health, do 5 squats. Hill teaches us that action, no matter how small, breaks the barrier of inertia. What small step are you going to take now? Another powerful concept from Napoleon Hill is the principle of momentum. Hill compared the mind to a locomotive. When it stops, a small obstacle stops it. But once it moves, nothing can stop it. Procrastination keeps you stuck, making even small tasks feel like mountains. Hill found, however, that successful people create momentum through micro-actions. For example, Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb in one day. He worked on small daily experiments, accumulating progress. Hill encourages us to reduce our initial resistance. Instead of thinking about finishing a 10-page report, focus on writing 1 paragraph. Instead of running a marathon, put on your sneakers and walk for 5 minutes. These micro-actions trick your brain into wanting to continue working once triggered. Think about it. What task overwhelms you because it seems too big? Hill would have us break it down into a ridiculously easy first step. For example, if you want to learn how to code, Take 5 minutes to watch the introductory video. Hill knew this need was addictive. Once you start, your mind will want to continue. Try this. Find a goal you've been putting off and write down the smallest step you can take today. So do it before this video ends. Hill said, impulse is the fuel of action. What micro-action are you going to take now? Now let's talk about autosuggestion, the principle that Napoleon Hill considered the key to reprogramming the mind. Hill taught that your thoughts are like seeds. What you plant in, your subconscious grows. If you constantly tell yourself, I don't have time or I'm not disciplined, you reinforce procrastination. However, Hill found that successful people use positive affirmations to shape their identity. For example, Andrew Carnegie convinced himself that he was a capable leader, even in the face of failure. Hill encourages us to create a powerful statement that reflects the person we want to be. For example, I am a person who acts decisively and performs my tasks excellently. Imagine this. What would happen if every morning you confidently told yourself, today I will act without hesitation and pursue my goals? Hill teaches us that emotionally repeating these affirmations changes your subconscious mind. Modern science confirms this. Affirmations create new neural connections. Try this. Write a sentence that reflects the most productive version of you, such as, I finish what I start with ease. Repeat this 3 times a day for a week with emotion, as if it were already true. Hill said, your mind believes what you say with faith. What affirmation will you use today? Another key principle of Napoleon Hill is time estimation. Hill taught that time is the most valuable resource because it can never be regained. Every second you spend procrastinating is a piece of your life lost forever. Hill noted that great leaders like John D. Rockefeller treated every minute as an investment. Imagine getting 86,400 seconds in your bank account every day, but at the end of the day, what you don't use disappears. Would you waste it on entertainment? Hill challenges us to live diligently as if each day was a unique opportunity to move closer to our dreams. Think about it. How much time have you wasted putting off something that could have changed your life? Hill would tell us that the time to act is now, not tomorrow. Try this. Choose an important task and devote 15 minutes to working on it today, without excuses. Use a timer and focus only on this task. Hill knew that appreciating time makes you unstoppable. How are you going to spend today's 86,400 seconds? Now let's talk about the principle of burning bridges, a radical strategy that Napoleon Hill learned from great achievements. Hill was inspired by military tactics. Generals burned bridges behind their armies to eliminate the possibility of retreat, forcing them to advance with all their might. Hill observed that those who are successful apply this to their lives by eliminating escape routes. For example, when Hill accepted Carnegie's challenge to write Think and Grow Rich, he invested all his time and resources, leaving no room for resignation. Hill encourages us to make commitments that force us to act. Think about it. What goal have you put off because there's always an easy way out? Hill would say that as long as you have an escape route, procrastination will win. Try this. Make a public commitment. For example, announce on social media that you will complete the project by May 30th, 2025, or promise a friend that you will show them your progress. Hill knew that positive pressure fuels a person. What bridge will you burn today? Another revolutionary concept of Napoleon Hill is positive pressure. Hill found that leaders create an environment in which failure is uncomfortable, which forces them to take action. For example, when Hill wrote his books, he surrounded himself with people who expected results, which motivated him not to disappoint them. Hill teaches us that external accountability is a powerful tool. If you just promise yourself that you will do something, it is easy to break that promise. But if others are counting on you, your mind prioritizes action. Imagine this. What would happen if you told your boss that you would finish the project by June 15th, 2025, or you promised your family that you would achieve the goal? Hill encourages us to use positive pressure to overcome procrastination. Try this. Choose a goal and share your commitment with someone you respect. Ask him to ask you about your progress in a week. Hill said, external accountability turns dreams into reality. Who will you report to today? If you like this video and discover how Napoleon Hill's principles can destroy your procrastination, please click the subscribe button. It's free, and you have no excuse not to join this community of action. Let's develop together. Now let's talk about cultivated enthusiasm, a principle that Napoleon Hill believed was essential to maintaining motivation. Hill noted that great successful people like Walt Disney did not expect to be motivated. They created their own enthusiasm. Disney faced countless rejections, but his passion for his vision kept him going. Hill teaches us that enthusiasm cannot be found. It's something you generate by taking action and celebrating small victories. For example, if you complete a difficult task, take a moment to appreciate your effort. This positive reinforcement trains your brain to want more action. Think about it. When was the last time you celebrated a small achievement? Hill would say that ignoring advances is a form of sabotage. Try this. Create a reward system. For example, if you complete an important task, give yourself a small reward such as a special coffee or 10 minutes of your favorite TV series. Hill knew that combining action with pleasure eliminated procrastination. What reward will you give yourself today? Another key principle of Napoleon Hill is to define your purpose. Hill taught that procrastination develops when you are not sure what you want. Without a specific goal in mind, your mind wanders, looking for entertainment. However, the leaders Hill studied, like Benjamin Franklin, had clear goals that guided every decision. Hill encourages writing down a specific, measurable goal. For example, instead of saying, "I want to be in good shape," write, "By December 31st, 2025, I will run 5 kilometers in less than 30 minutes. Consider, do you have a goal that excites you every day? Hill would say that without a beacon to guide you, procrastination will lead you astray. Try this. Take 10 minutes to write down a clear goal with a deadline, such as, by April 30th, 2026, I will save $5,000 on travel. Hill knew that purpose was the antidote to inaction. Why will you write today? Now let's talk about eliminating distractions, a principle that Napoleon Hill identified as crucial to productivity. Hill noted that great geniuses such as Nikola Tesla created a distraction-free environment to maximize concentration. In our times, distractions like social media and notifications are attention thieves. Hill teaches us that you can't beat procrastination if you allow your mind to be bombarded with stimuli. For example, when Tesla was working on his inventions, he isolated himself completely, making sure that nothing disturbed his concentration. Imagine this. How much more could you achieve if you worked continuously for just 1 hour a day? Hill encourages us to create protected blocks of time. Try this. Choose a 50-minute window tomorrow, put your phone on airplane mode, close all unnecessary tabs, and tackle one task. Hill knew that concentration was a superpower. When are you going to create the next focus block? Another powerful concept from Napoleon Hill is disciplined consistency. Hill taught that success comes not from heroic efforts, but from small, continuous actions. For example, Hill wrote his books every day, even if it was just a page. Hill encourages us to develop a daily habit, no matter how small, to build an action identity. If you want to learn a language, spend 10 minutes a day practicing your vocabulary. In 1 year, you will accumulate over 60 hours of learning. Think about it. What could you achieve if you took action every day without fail? Hill would say that consistency is the bridge between dreams and reality. Try this. Choose a goal and commit to working on it 5 minutes a day for 30 days. Use a calendar to mark each day you do this. Hill knew that consistency changes your identity. What habit will you start today? Now let's talk about mental clarity, a principle that Napoleon Hill believed was essential to making effective decisions. Hill taught that a confused mind produces chaotic results. Procrastination often occurs when you are overwhelmed by options or worries. Hill noted that leaders like Rockefeller remained calm by simplifying their thoughts. Hill encourages us to practice introspection, such as writing down ideas or meditating, to clear mental fog. Ask yourself, is your mind clear, or do you feel trapped in a whirlwind of thoughts? Hill would say that clarity is the first step to action. Try this. Spend 10 minutes tonight writing down everything that's bothering you and then choose just one thing to focus on tomorrow. Hill knew that a clear mind is a powerful mind. How will you clear your mind today? Another transformative principle from Napoleon Hill is emotional resilience. Hill noticed that great successful people like Abraham Lincoln were able to face rejection without losing faith in themselves. Sometimes procrastination comes from fear of failure or criticism. Hill teaches us that difficult emotions are part of the journey, but they shouldn't hold you back. For example, when Lincoln lost the election, he used these moments to strengthen his resolve. Hill encourages us to develop tools, such as meditation or exercise, to manage stress. Imagine this. What would happen if you saw every failure as a lesson rather than an obstacle? Hill would say that emotional resilience makes you unstoppable. Try this. Next time you feel frustrated, take 10 deep breaths and write down a lesson you can learn. Hill knew that your emotions shouldn't rule you. How will you strengthen your immunity today? Now let's talk about strategic planning, a principle that Napoleon Hill considered the basis of success. Hill taught that procrastination develops through improvisation. Without a plan, your efforts will be scattered. Hill observed that leaders like Ford divided their goals into clear steps and set deadlines. For example, if you want to start a business, your plan might include researching the market by June 10, 2025, creating a prototype by July 30, 2025, and launching the company by September 15, 2025. Hill encourages us to structure our goals to eliminate ambiguity. Think about it. Do you have a clear plan for your most important goal? Hill would say that without a map, you'll get lost along the way. Try this. Take 20 minutes to write a plan with 3 specific steps and dates to achieve your goal. Hill knew that planning was the death of procrastination. What plan will you make today? Another key concept from Napoleon Hill is intellectual curiosity. Hill noted that great innovators like Edison never stopped asking questions. Sometimes procrastination comes from fear of not knowing enough. Hill teaches us that curiosity dissolves fear. For example, if you want to start a business, research an aspect of your industry for 15 minutes a day. Hill encourages us to see learning as an adventure, not a burden. Think about it. Are you still curious, or are you satisfied with what you know? Hill would say that curiosity drives progress. Try this. Choose a topic related to your goal and read an article about it today. Hill knew that a curious mind never delays. What will you learn today? Now let's talk about active empathy, a principle that Napoleon Hill identified as essential to building relationships that support your success. Hill taught that procrastination sometimes comes from disconnection from others. When you feel alone, it's easier to give up. Hill noted that leaders like Carnegie built support networks through authentic listening. Hill encourages us to practice empathy, such as asking colleagues how they are doing and listening without interrupting. Imagine this. What if your relationships motivated you instead of holding you back? Hill would say that empathy creates allies. Try this. Spend 5 minutes talking to a significant other and ask them a personal question. Hill knew that deep relationships eliminate procrastination. Who will you connect with today? Another powerful principle from Napoleon Hill is transformative gratitude. Hill taught that focusing on what you have rather than what you lack changes the way you think. Procrastination often comes from feeling like you don't have enough time, resources, skills. Hill encourages us to practice gratitude daily to cultivate abundance. For example, every night write down 3 things you are grateful for, such as a friend who supported you or a small achievement. Think about it. Are you practicing gratitude or focusing on your lack? Hill would say that gratitude is a magnet for action. Try this. Start a gratitude journal and write down 3 positive things every day for a week. Hill knew that a grateful mind did not delay. Why not start writing your journal today? Now let's talk about emotional authenticity, a value that Napoleon Hill considered the key to inspiring trust. Hill taught that showing true emotions makes you more human and motivating. Sometimes procrastination comes from fear of being judged. Hill noted that leaders like Roosevelt shared their struggles, which made them stronger. Hill encourages us to be vulnerable when appropriate, such as admitting a mistake to our team. Think about it. Are you being authentic, or are you hiding your emotions out of fear? Hill would say that authenticity breaks down barriers. Try this. Share with a loved one a personal experience from this week, such as a challenge you overcame. Hill knew that vulnerability motivates action. How are you going to be more authentic today? Another revolutionary concept of Napoleon Hill is strategic actions. Hill taught that it is not enough to act, it has to be done wisely. For example, when Hill published his books, he selected editors who would maximize their impact. Hill encourages us to plan each action to bring the greatest effect. If you want to develop professionally, invest time in a skill that is valued in your industry. Edge, data analysis. Imagine this. What if every action you take brought you closer to your goal? Hill would say this strategy eliminates waste. Try this. Before you start a task, ask yourself, is this the best solution? Hill knew that wise action beats procrastination. What strategic action will you plan today? Now let's talk about focused perseverance, a principle that Napoleon Hill believed was the key to overcoming failure. Hill observed that great successful people like Ford never gave up, even when the odds were against them. Procrastination often occurs when failure discourages you. Hill teaches us that success requires moving forward, one step at a time. For example, when Ford faced criticism of his vision, he adjusted his approach but never abandoned it. Ask yourself, will you persevere in the face of challenges, or will you give up too quickly? Hill would say that persistence is the muscle of success. Try this. Find a goal you've abandoned and commit to working on it 10 minutes a day for a week. Hill knew that perseverance overcomes any obstacle. How are you going to persevere today? Another key principle of Napoleon Hill is transparency of communication. Hill taught that articulating your ideas precisely helps align others with your vision. Sometimes procrastination occurs because you don't clearly communicate your goals, even to yourself. Hill noted that leaders like Franklin formulated their plans in detail, which made them more feasible. Hill encourages us to practice direct communication, such as writing a clear project plan. Consider, are you clearly communicating your goals, or are they unclear even to you? Hill would say that clarity is the first step to action. Try this. Write your goal in a clear sentence such as, I will publish the article by July 20th, 2025. Hill knew that precise words drive action. What goal will you set today? Now let's talk about strategic introspection, a principle that Napoleon Hill identified as crucial to growth. Hill taught that reflecting on your decisions helps you avoid repeated mistakes. Procrastination often comes from not learning from your patterns. Hill observed that leaders like Edison analyzed every failure to improve. Hill encourages us to spend time assessing our progress, perhaps writing down what worked and what didn't. Imagine this. What would happen if every mistake brought you closer to your goal? Hill would say that introspection is the roadmap to success. Try this. Spend 10 minutes this week writing about your last decision and what you learned. Hill knew that reflection eliminates procrastination. How are you going to reflect today? Another powerful concept from Napoleon Hill is strategic cooperation. Hill taught that being with the right people enhances performance. Sometimes procrastination occurs when you try to do everything yourself. Hill noted that leaders like Carnegie created teams that complemented their strengths. Hill encourages us to seek out partners who challenge us, such as a mentor or a colleague, with different skills. Think about it. Do you work with people who empower you, or do you work in isolation? Hill would say that cooperation multiplies action. Try this. Contact someone this week to work on a project together. Hill knew that teams overcome procrastination. Who will you be working with today? Now let's talk about learned humility, a value that Napoleon Hill considered essential to growth. Hill taught that true leaders like Lincoln grew by recognizing their limitations. Sometimes procrastination occurs because you are afraid to admit that you need help. Hill encourages us to seek feedback and learn from others. For example, if a colleague suggests an improvement, thank them instead of defending yourself. Ask yourself, are you open to criticism or do you resist it? Hill would say that humility is the gateway to progress. Try this. Ask someone for constructive criticism this week and act on it. Hill knew that humility dissolves procrastination. How are you going to be more humble today? Another transformative principle of Napoleon Hill is focused concentration. Hill taught that in a world full of distractions, the ability to focus on one task is a superpower. Hill observed that geniuses like Tesla worked in blocks of time without breaks. Procrastination thrives when your attention is distracted. Hill encourages us to create environments that maximize concentration, such as turning off notifications or working in a quiet place. Imagine this. How much can you achieve by focusing completely for 25 minutes a day? Hill would say that focus is the key to productivity. Try this. Use the Pomodoro technique tomorrow. Work on a task for 25 minutes without distractions, then rest for 5. Hill knew that focus is better than procrastination. When will you try Pomodoro? Now let's talk about personal renewal, a principle that Napoleon Hill identified as central to sustainable development. Hill taught that one cannot act without energizing the mind and body. Sometimes procrastination is due to fatigue. Hill noted that leaders like Franklin set aside time for rest and reflection. Hill encourages us to incorporate activities such as reading, meditation, and walking into our routine. Think about it. Are you giving yourself time to renew yourself, or are you constantly on edge? Hill would say that renewal is the fuel for action. Try this. Schedule an hour this week for relaxing activities such as painting or listening to music. Hill knew that a renewed mind did not delay. How are you going to recover today? Another key concept from Napoleon Hill is shared vision. Hill taught that sharing goals with others creates stronger commitment. Sometimes procrastination sets in because your dreams are yours and yours alone. Hill noted that leaders like Ford inspired their teams by communicating a clear vision. Hill encourages us to involve others in our goals, such as discussing a project with colleagues. Think about it. Do you share your dreams or keep them a secret? Hill would say that a shared vision multiplies motivation. Try this. Share your goal for this week with a friend and ask for their support. Hill knew that community overcomes procrastination. What vision will you share today? Now let's talk about physical resilience, a principle that Napoleon Hill identified as essential to sustaining action. Hill taught that a strong mind resides in a healthy body. Sometimes procrastination comes from physical exhaustion. Hill observed that leaders like Roosevelt exercised regularly to gain energy. Hill encourages us to take care of our health through physical activity and proper nutrition. Imagine this. What could you achieve with more physical energy? Hill would say that physical resilience is the basis of action. Try this. 3 times a week, spend 15 minutes doing some exercise, such as walking or yoga. Hill knew that a strong body eliminates procrastination. How will you take care of your body today? Another powerful principle of Napoleon Hill is deep introspection. Hill taught that understanding your motivations and fears gives you control over your decisions. Procrastination often occurs because you don't face your inner fears. Hill observed that leaders like Gandhi regularly reflect on how to align their actions with their values. Hill encourages us to spend time writing or meditating on our goals. Think about it. Are you taking the time to get to know yourself? Hill would say that introspection is the compass for action. Try this. Write a page this week about what motivates you and what holds you back. Hill knew that self-knowledge defeats procrastination. How are you going to discover yourself today? Now, let's talk about positive influence, a principle that Napoleon Hill identified as central to motivation. Hill taught that the people around you shape your mentality. Sometimes procrastination occurs because you are surrounded by negativity. Hill noted that leaders like Carnegie sought mentors who inspired them. Hill encourages us to surround ourselves with people who challenge us to be better. Ask yourself, do your relationships lift you up or hold you back? Hill would say that positive influence is a catalyst for action. Try this. Reach out to someone you admire this week and learn from them. Hill knew that the right connections eliminated procrastination. Who will inspire you today? Another revolutionary concept of Napoleon Hill is immediate action. Hill taught that procrastination dies when you act without hesitation. Hill noted that leaders like Edison did not wait for the perfect moment. They started with what they had. Hill encourages us to take action no matter how small in the next 24 hours. For example, if you want to improve your CV, edit your line today. Imagine this. What would happen if you never abandoned an idea without action? Hill would say that immediate action is the procrastination killer. Try this. Pick a task you've been putting off and do something about it now, before this video ends. Hill knew the only thing that mattered was now. What will you do now? Now let's talk about absolute integrity, a value that Napoleon Hill considered the basis of character. Hill taught that keeping promises, even small ones, builds self-confidence. Sometimes procrastination occurs because you don't trust your ability to move forward. Hill noted that leaders like Franklin kept their words, which earned them respect. Hill encourages us to make realistic commitments and keep them. Think about it. Do you keep the promises you make to yourself? Hill would say that honesty is the basis of action. Try this. Make a small promise like reading 10 pages today and keep it. Hill knew that honesty eliminated procrastination. What promise will you keep today? Another key principle of Napoleon Hill is transformational vision. Hill taught that imagining a bold future inspires action. Sometimes procrastination sets in because your goals don't excite you enough. Hill noted that leaders such as Martin Luther King Jr., they created visions that moved mountains. Hill encourages us to dream big and connect our everyday actions with them. For example, if you want to become a writer, imagine that your book will be in bookstores by April 30th, 2030. Ask yourself, is your vision big enough to motivate you? Hill would say that a transformational vision is a magnet for action. Try this. Write a vision for your life in 2030, including where you are and what you have achieved. Hill knew that dreaming big beats procrastination. What vision will you create today? Now let's talk about creative collaboration, a principle that Napoleon Hill identified as central to innovation. Hill taught that the best ideas come from working with others. Sometimes procrastination occurs because you feel stuck. Hill noted that leaders like Ford were looking for fresh perspectives on solving problems. Hill encourages us to brainstorm with colleagues or friends. Imagine this. What would happen if your ideas multiplied by sharing them? Hill would say that collaboration is an accelerator of action. Try this. Set up a call with someone this week to discuss an idea or project. Hill knew that united minds eliminate procrastination. Who will you create with today? Another powerful concept from Napoleon Hill is emotional clarity. Hill taught that understanding your emotions gives you control over your decisions. Procrastination often occurs when you allow fear or frustration to get the best of you. Hill noted that leaders like Roosevelt remained calm in crisis situations, examining their emotions before taking action. Hill encourages us to stop and reflect when emotions are intense. Think about it. Do you control your emotions or do they control you? Hill would say that emotional clarity is the key to action. Try this. Next time you feel a strong emotion, write down what caused it and how to deal with it. Hill knew that a clear mind beats procrastination. How are you going to deal with your emotions today? Now let's talk about authenticity in leadership, a principle that Napoleon Hill considered essential to inspiration. Hill taught that authentic leadership motivates others and oneself. Sometimes procrastination comes from fear of not being enough. Hill noted that leaders like Gandhi lived their values, which made them unstoppable. Hill encourages us to align our actions with our beliefs. Think about it. Are you living in line with your values or are you letting yourself get carried away by external pressures? Hill would say that authenticity drives action. Try this. Take an action this week that reflects your values, such as supporting a cause you care about. Hill knew that authenticity eliminated procrastination. How are you going to lead authentically today? Another transformative principle of Napoleon Hill is economy of effort. Hill taught that efficient use of resources, time, energy, and money maximizes one's impact. Procrastination often results from wasting energy on unimportant tasks. Hill noted that leaders like Rockefeller prioritized what generated results. Hill encourages us to evaluate how we spend our resources and eliminate what is unnecessary. Imagine this. What could you achieve if you focused all your energy on what's important? Hill would say that saving effort is a multiplier of action. Try this. Find one activity you can eliminate this week to free up time for your priorities. Hill knew that efficiency beats procrastination. What will you optimize today? Now let's talk about strategic patience, a principle that Napoleon Hill believed was crucial to lasting success. Hill taught that great achievements take time and that impatience promotes procrastination. Hill observed that leaders like Edison worked patiently, knowing that each step brought them closer to their goal. Hill encourages us to focus on the process, not just the outcome. Think about it. Do you get frustrated when results take time? Hill would say that patience is the mother of sustainable action. Try this. Choose a long-term goal and commit to a daily step, such as practicing a skill for 10 minutes. Hill knew that patience eliminates procrastination. How are you going to practice patience today? Another key concept from Napoleon Hill is adaptability. Hill taught that the world is constantly changing and that resistance to change promotes procrastination. Hill noted that leaders like Bell adapted to new technologies that kept them at the forefront. Hill encourages us to see change as an opportunity, not a threat. For example, if your industry is evolving, learn a new tool. Ask yourself, do you accept change or resist it? Hill would say that adaptability is the driving force of action. Try this. Identify a change in your environment and learn something about it this week, such as a new app. Hill knew that flexibility beats procrastination. How are you going to adapt today? Now let's talk about strategic generosity, a principle that Napoleon Hill saw as a magnet for opportunity. Hill taught that giving without expecting anything in return creates connections and opens doors. Sometimes procrastination occurs because you feel isolated. Hill noted that leaders like Carnegie shared knowledge, which made them stronger. Hill encourages us to offer help such as free advice. Imagine this. What if your generosity inspired others to support you? Hill would say that generosity is a catalyst for action. Try this. Show some act of generosity this week, such as helping a friend with a task. Hill knew that giving eliminates procrastination. How are you going to show generosity today? Another powerful principle of Napoleon Hill is long-term vision. Hill taught that looking at the horizon helps overcome everyday obstacles. Procrastination often occurs when you focus on immediate problems. Hill noted that leaders like Disney imagined a great future, which motivated them. Hill encourages us to create a clear picture of our ideal future. Think about it. Do you have a vision that guides you? Hill would say that a long-term vision is a guide to action. Try this. Write down where you want to be on April 30th, 2035, including your career and legacy. Hill knew that clear vision beats procrastination. What vision will you write today? Now let's talk about self-confidence, the principle that Napoleon Hill considered the basis of success. Hill taught that self-confidence dissolves the fear that fuels procrastination. Hill noted that leaders like Roosevelt displayed confidence even in the face of adversity. Hill encourages us to build self-confidence through small achievements, such as completing a difficult task. Ask yourself, do you trust your ability to take action? Hill would say that confidence is the spark for action. Try this. Choose a small challenge this week, like speaking at a meeting, and take it on. Hill knew that confidence eliminates procrastination. How are you going to strengthen your self-confidence today? Another transformational concept from Napoleon Hill is honesty. Hill taught that authenticity in words and actions builds trust. Sometimes procrastination comes from fear of not being accepted. Hill noted that leaders like Franklin were respected for their integrity. Hill encourages us to be transparent, such as admitting when we are wrong. Imagine this. What if your actions were always sincere? Hill would say that honesty is the basis of action. Try this. Make a promise this week and keep it, just like turning in your work on time. Hill knew that honesty beats procrastination. How are you going to be more honest today? Now let's talk about practical creativity, a principle that Napoleon Hill considered crucial to problem solving. Hill taught that procrastination often comes from seeing obstacles as insurmountable. Hill noted that geniuses like Edison used creativity to find solutions. Hill encourages us to take on challenges with an open mind, such as trying new approaches. Think about it. Would you use your creativity to overcome a block? Hill would say that creativity drives action. Try this. Identify the problem and write down 5 creative solutions this week, even if they seem crazy. Hill knew that imagination eliminates procrastination. What creative solution will you try today? Another key principle of Napoleon Hill is effective communication. Hill taught that expressing your ideas clearly helps others achieve your goals. Sometimes procrastination occurs because you are not communicating your needs. Hill noted that leaders like Carnegie persuaded with precise words. Hill encourages us to practice active listening and direct communication. Consider, are you clearly communicating your goals? Hill would say that communication is the bridge to action. Try this. Explain an idea to someone this week in less than a minute. Hill knew that transparency drives action. How are you going to improve your communication today? Now let's talk about emotional resilience, a principle that Napoleon Hill believed was essential to overcoming setbacks. Hill taught that procrastination often comes from fear of failure. Hill noted that leaders like Lincoln treated failures as lessons. Hill encourages us to manage our emotions using tools like writing and meditation. Imagine this. What if every failure made you stronger? Hill would say that resilience is a shield against procrastination. Try this. Write down the lessons learned from a recent failure this week. Hill knew that controlled emotions eliminate procrastination. How will you be more resilient today? Another revolutionary concept of Napoleon Hill is strategic planning. Hill taught that a clear plan eliminates the ambiguity that promotes procrastination. Hill noted that leaders like Ford broke their goals down into specific steps. Hill encourages us to create schedules with specific deadlines, such as completing the project by August 15, 2025. Think about it. Do you have a structured plan for your goals? Hill would say that planning is a map of actions. Try this. Write a plan with 3 steps and goal dates for this week. Hill knew that structure beats procrastination. What plan will you make today? Now let's talk about intellectual curiosity, the principle that Napoleon Hill considered the engine of progress. Hill taught that procrastination often comes from a fear of not knowing enough. Hill observed that geniuses like Tesla explored without fear. Hill encourages us to constantly ask ourselves questions like, how can I make this better? Ask yourself, are you still curious? Hill would say that curiosity is the spark for action. Try this. Look for a new topic related to your goal this week as a productivity technique. Hill knew that learning eliminated procrastination. What will you discover today? Another powerful principle of Napoleon Hill is active empathy. Hill taught that understanding others strengthens relationships and motivation. Sometimes procrastination occurs because you feel disconnected. Hill noted that leaders like Carnegie really listened. Hill encourages us to practice empathy, such as asking personal questions. Imagine this. What if you were driven by relationships? Hill would say that empathy is the bridge to action. Try this. This week, actively listen to someone without interrupting. Hill knew that connection beats procrastination. Who will you connect with today? Now let's talk about transformative gratitude, a principle that Napoleon Hill considered central to an abundance mentality. Hill taught that procrastination often comes from a feeling that something is missing. Hill encourages us to write down 3 things every day for which we are grateful, such as an achievement or happy moment. Think about it. Do you practice gratitude? Hill would say that gratitude is a magnet for action. Try this. Start a gratitude journal this week and write down 3 things each night. Hill knew that a grateful mind did not delay. Why not start today? Finally, I want to end with a powerful message. You have the power to destroy procrastination and live the life Napoleon Hill knew you could achieve. Hill dedicated his life to teaching us that success is a choice, a series of daily decisions that change who you are. Instant decision, impulse, autosuggestion, valuing time, burning bridges, positive pressure, cultivated enthusiasm, goal definition, elimination of distractions, disciplined consistency, mental clarity, emotional resilience, strategic planning, intellectual curiosity, active empathy, transforming gratitude, emotional authenticity, strategic action, focused persistence, clarity in communication, strategic introspection, strategic collaboration, learned humility, focused concentration, personal renewal, shared vision, physical resilience, deep introspection, positive impact, immediate action, absolute integrity, transformative vision, creative collaboration, emotional clarity, authenticity in leadership, economy of effort, strategic patience, adaptability, strategic generosity, long-term vision, self-confidence, honesty, practical creativity, effective communication, emotional resilience, strategic planning, intellectual curiosity, active empathy, transforming gratitude. These are the tools of your greatness. It all starts now, with action, decision, and commitment. Today is the day you can stop procrastinating and start taking action. Subscribe if you want to. Take control and comment the word now